Listen, we want to talk to you about Sharon Osbourne because I saw your post yesterday. You really loved her. You worked with her 5 seasons
I did.
on America's Got Talent. And you know her very well. And she was with us on set when we were reporting on the Queen's funeral. Tell me what you thought about that reaction yesterday. There were so many people lining the streets of Birmingham.
You know, it's very heartbreaking in one way. I watched Sharon yesterday. I teared up watching it because I've known Sharon a long time. She's a very, very close friend of mine. And to see her so broken in the way that she was. They were married nearly 50 years.
Wow.
And they never pretended they had the perfect marriage. They had probably more challenges than most marriages would ever go through. But what they had underpinning it was a ferocious love. It was an undimmed, ferocious love. And when I saw Sharon without her Ozzy, you know, it did make me choke up, actually. My heart breaks for Sharon. She's a wonderful lady. And I think that Ozzy, the manner of his departure, the scale of the mourners that came out, and almost part mourning and part celebrating this amazing guy's life, I think people have been taken aback by the scale of it. And there's going to be a private funeral today, I think, with just a few family and friends. But yesterday, for Ozzy, was him saying goodbye to the people of Birmingham. And I've not seen crowds like that for somebody's funeral in the UK, probably outside of a royal ceremony. So it was amazing.
I was saying, Mr. Gene Simmons earlier, that they didn't pretend to be perfect human beings. They embraced their flaws. They were very open and candid about stuff that went wrong. You know, Sharon never claimed to have the perfect marriage. She knew who she was married to. She knew he was a bit of a wild boy, Ozzy. But Ozzy said to me many times, you know, he could never have done any of this without Sharon.
Under a sky heavy with English clouds, the crowd that gathered in Birmingham for Ozzy Osbourne's last farewell stretched for blocks, a living river of sorrow, celebration, and disbelief. At the heart of it all stood Sharon Osbourne, cloaked not in black, but in a composure so raw that even the hardest rockers were moved. Her hands shook, her eyes locked on a void, but her back never bent. This was not the public Sharon, fiery, sharp-witted, unyielding on television or backstage at the world's biggest tours. This was a woman brought face to face with a kind of emptiness words can barely hold. And as the world grieved Ozzy, a different story was unfolding, one that only those close to Sharon could truly sense. For nearly half a century, Sharon and Ozzy Osbourne's marriage had been the subject of endless fascination, a spectacle spilling out of the tabloids, reality TV screens, and heavy metal lore. Everywhere they went, they drew drama like a magnet. Rumors, scandals, wild confessions, chaotic reconciliations. Life at the center of the Osbourne circus was never gentle. Friends say Sharon was the only one with the grit to keep Ozzy tethered to reality while letting him fly as far as his mischief and his demons would take him. What most people never realized, though, was the price she paid to keep their world spinning. Sharon wasn't just Ozzy's wife. She was the shrewd architect behind his comeback after he was kicked out of Black Sabbath. She turned disaster into opportunity, launching Ozzy's solo career, cutting legendary deals, and running their household like a general at war. Each day, she balanced public battles, addiction, betrayal, explosive interviews with the private ones, holding the family together, negotiating with friends and rivals, keeping Ozzy alive during his worst spirals. There was an intensity to Sharon's devotion that baffled outsiders. The media had a field day with revelations about Ozzy's infidelities, his stints in rehab, the infamous 2016 scandal that almost shattered their marriage for good. But what pulsed beneath every headline was Sharon's refusal to give up, a stubbornness rooted in something more ferocious than forgiveness or even love. "We're not perfect, but we're real," she said once, dismissing the myth of the fairy tale romance. And in her version of marriage, real meant ugly, difficult, and worth fighting for. It wasn't lost on anyone that Sharon's role as Ozzy's manager often brought her as many enemies as it did allies. She was formidable in negotiations, feared and sometimes reviled in the music industry for her unapologetic style. There were accusations that she was too controlling, that she froze out competitors, that she drew the line between family and business with surgical precision. Not everyone forgave her for decisions she made to protect Ozzy or the Osbourne name. But even her toughest critics admitted that Ozzy would never have survived, let alone thrived, without her. Still, the costs were heavy. Insiders whisper of moments when Sharon's strength seemed to be fueled only by sheer necessity. Family confidants say she weathered betrayals and heartbreaks most people couldn't fathom. Ozzy's battles with addiction, erratic disappearances, violent outbursts, and eventually the crushing diagnosis of Parkinson's disease in 2020. Every time Ozzy came close to losing himself or his life, Sharon was the one pulling him back, shielding him from a world that loved to see a legend fall as much as it loved to lift him up. When news broke about Ozzy's death in July 2025, the world mourned the loss of one of rock's greatest icons. But for Sharon, it was something deeper, the end of a fierce, decades-long campaign. Observers saw her public composure at the funeral and memorials, but friends say the real loss hit her in the quiet, private days that followed. Ozzy wasn't just her husband, one friend shared. He was her project, her soulmate, her lifelong challenge. Despite all the headlines and public speculation, the Osbourne story has always been one of brutal transparency. Sharon and Ozzy let the cameras in during their reality TV heyday, showing the world everything: marital spats, health emergencies, home dramas. Behind the glamour was struggle on an epic scale. Sharon absorbed the shocks of fame, the attacks from tabloids, the invasions of privacy. The rumors of family feuds, especially between Sharon, Ozzy's children from previous relationships, and their own children, Jack and Kelly, were a constant backdrop. Reports claimed jealousy, disagreements about money and inheritance, and a never-ending cycle of reconciliation and separation. Yet there Sharon was, holding court over a sprawling family that still showed up for Ozzy's last performance. Those final days in Birmingham were as unforgettable as any heavy metal anthem. Ozzy, unable to walk, was brought on stage in what many called his throne of darkness, a massive, ominous black chair that seemed to embody both the gravity of his legacy and the weight of his final battle. His iconic voice struggled, cracked, then soared, blasting out classics from both his solo years and Black Sabbath. The crowd was transfixed, knowing they were witnessing the unrepeatable. Backstage, legends like Metallica and Guns N' Roses gathered not just as peers, but as disciples paying homage. Every note was a farewell, every lyric a piece of rock history closing its book. Sharon watched from the wings, flanked by family, emotion radiating from her without a single theatrical gesture. And as the music faded, a more intimate drama played out on the field. Ozzy watched, pride clear on his face as their daughter Kelly was proposed to, a moment full of hope in the midst of loss. Ozzy, frail but beaming, offered his words of blessing. Later, a private letter emerged, in which he expressed regret for not being able to attend her wedding due to his declining health, sending wishes for happiness and peace instead. Stories like these, circulating among both friends and media, captured the real Osbourne family, imperfect, messy, but bound together by something not even death could fully sever. But it would be naive to imagine Ozzy's passing knitted everyone together. Rumors, long denied and never quite dispelled, blossomed in the aftermath. Reports claim arguments swelled around Ozzy's estate, over the catalog, the management of residuals, even competing ideas for his musical legacy. Some family members, especially from Ozzy's first marriage, felt sidelined. There were whispers of strict legal measures orchestrated by Sharon to ensure her control remained unquestioned, and of tense family summits called not just to mourn, but to decide the future. Sharon, as always, neither confirmed nor denied. If she had orchestrated, it was for Ozzy's memory as much as her own security. If the tabloids thrived on Osbourne family drama, they also delighted in Sharon's own troubles. Her explosive exit from The Talk in 2021, after allegations of racism and conflict with co-hosts, haunted her public reputation for years. Some say that period rekindled old feuds within the Osbourne clan, while others saw it as business as usual, a woman who never apologized for speaking her mind and who weathered setbacks with typical fire. Even after losing Ozzy, Sharon faced both sympathetic fans and harsh online critics, with each public statement dissected for meaning. Rumors surfaced that she was fielding offers for tell-all memoirs, new reality TV ventures, even a comeback to music management. Yet, as always, Sharon moved on her own schedule, revealing only what she wanted to reveal. Behind the scenes, Sharon began to reassemble her life from the ruins left by grief. Out of the media glare, she reportedly started reaching out to mend bridges with estranged family members. Speculation ran wild. Was it about unity, or about defending the Osbourne brand from dilution? Either way, grandchildren became a new focus, as Sharon tried to pull them close and offer some sense of continuity, amid traditions upended by loss. Insiders say she has taken up projects behind the scenes, rumored to be funding addiction recovery programs in Ozzy's name, quietly supporting rock charities, and keeping a sharp eye on how his music and story are handled in the public sphere. The Osbourne legacy, after all, was never just about loud concerts or tabloid mayhem. It was about surviving when the world expected them to crash and burn. Sharon's experience with cancer, with public humiliation, with family mutiny, all these became the foundation stones for a woman who refused to play the victim even while the victim narrative was forced upon her. Throughout the months after Ozzy's death, friends reported seeing Sharon transform. Less the manager, more the matriarch, intent on making sense of decades of chaos in ways that would outlast her own time in the spotlight. Still, the world wanted more, and Sharon knew it. When she did speak, either in cryptic Instagram posts or brief interviews, her message was always the same. There's more to come. I'm not done yet. Each ambiguous comment drew speculation. Was she preparing to open up about the real truth of life with Ozzy, the pain and joy nobody else had seen? Or was her silence a final act of control, the only way to shield herself and her family from one last public autopsy? The answer, as ever with Sharon, was both and neither. She danced that line between openness and secrecy, keeping fans engaged and critics mystified. Paparazzi spotted her at Ozzy's gravesite, at family outings, usually surrounded by a small knot of loyal friends or relatives. She looked thinner, older, sometimes tired, but never diminished. It was clear that grief was not going to erase her. If anything, it had honed her focus. Sharon's return to public life, when it happened, was calculated. Gone were the bombastic declarations or the pointed feuds, at least in public. Instead, she surfaced in support of causes close to her heart, hinting at large donations and new foundations dedicated to addiction treatment and Parkinson's research. She declined to front new reality shows, but left the door wide open for projects that involved telling Ozzy's story on her own terms. In a rare interview, she simply said, "My husband gave everything to his music and his family. Now it's my turn to decide what all this means, for us and for everyone who loved him." If anyone expected Sharon to spill every secret, they don't know her very well. Friends say she became more protective of her grandchildren, immersing herself in their lives, even as she quietly urged Jack and Kelly to find their own way. Some insiders speculate she's working on a definitive documentary, one that will include testimonials from friends and rivals alike, but with editorial control firmly in her hands. The Osbourne legacy, for now, remains under lock and key. But behind the poise, the private pain endures. At home, those closest report that Sharon is sometimes lost in old routines, making coffee in the kitchen, humming old Sabbath tunes, answering emails as if Ozzy might walk in with 2 barking dogs behind him. She keeps his clothes, his guitar, pieces of scratched-up lyric sheets. Visitors say she talks to his portrait some nights, the words drifting between confessions, curses, and quiet thank yous. Grief for Sharon is a slow curriculum, one she never wanted to study. The ongoing public fascination with Ozzy and Sharon owes much to the way they let people into the mess. Fans loved them for never pretending. When Sharon faced cancer, her battle was documented on the Osbournes, raw and candid. When Ozzy stumbled, relapsed, or chased ghosts, the world saw it, the heartbreak, the humor, the recovery. Sharon has always said, "You can't buy real love, and you can't fake it." Maybe that's why viewers never tired of watching them. Their flaws, put on display, gave everyone permission to believe in imperfect happiness. As months passed, friends note a change in Sharon's circle. She has become more selective, relying on longtime allies rather than new faces. Even with her critics, she's shown flashes of her old humor. When asked how she was coping, she quipped, "I've survived rock and roll, cancer, scandal, and social media. I think I can handle a little loneliness." But those who read between the lines see longing. Her partnership with Ozzy was legend not just for its volatility, but for its singular intensity. Through the whirlwind of everything, Sharon Osbourne stayed true to her own code. Never back down, never apologize for loving too fiercely, never let someone else write your ending. She weathered the rumors about financial schemes, the speculation that she had plotted too much control over the estate. It's been said that's just what it takes to steer a legacy in the spotlight. Whatever the controversy, Sharon owned her actions. And yet, she wasn't afraid to show remorse when it was needed. The infamous cheating scandal nearly undid her. Insiders say that for a time, she vanished from friends and family alike. When Ozzy begged for forgiveness and swore on their life together, Sharon made her own peace behind closed doors. Her return was not with triumphant headlines, but a quiet resilience, welcoming the world to see what endurance really looked like after so much had been broken. In the wake of Ozzy's passing, even estranged relatives started to reappear. Arguments still happened, some old, some new, but Sharon, for once, played the peacemaker. Some say it's because she wants the Osbourne legend unified. Others believe she's seeking closure herself, building a fortress of connection to keep the emptiness at bay. Whatever the motive, reconciliation became a theme of her days. Friends of the couple, reflecting on their life together, struggled to find any parallel. It was a union woven from wildness and willpower, from creative fire and bottomless patience. Ozzy, the wild boy of heavy metal, tamed by nobody but managed by a woman whose love expressed itself in deadlines and lifelines, in fierce arguments and gentle reminders to take your pills. For all the chaos, Sharon was the ballast, the necessary gravity in Ozzy's orbit. People close to them saw a kind of partnership rare in any walk of life, each completing and challenging the other, neither backing down for long. For Sharon, the journey forward is both daunting and electrifying. With Ozzy gone, she realizes her last role is to curate what's left. Memories, lessons, apologies left unsaid, stories no biographer could dream up. Each offer that lands on her desk is weighed: reality show, book, podcast, foundation, perhaps even a Broadway musical. Some tantalize, others repel. It has to mean something, or I'm not interested, she's been overheard telling confidants. The music world, meanwhile, debates what Ozzy's legacy will be. Some eulogize only his contributions to heavy metal. Others, the anti-hero who lived as loudly off stage as on. But beneath every tribute is the imprint of Sharon Osbourne, the woman who saved, shaped, and sometimes shielded him from a world eager to both idolize and destroy. Curiously, Sharon's own public image has softened in the wake of tragedy. Where once she was the battle axe manager, she is now portrayed as survivor, elder, and perhaps as someone who risked and lost more than we knew. Her willingness to reframe her own story, to let the world see the exhaustion and the occasional cracks, maybe offers something rarer than any showbiz triumph, a kind of ordinary humanity within all the spectacle. For fans and family, the Osbourne story isn't over, nor is it frozen in grief. New projects will emerge, fresh headlines will come, and Sharon will remain at the center, her grip steady, but her vision now broader, more encompassing. She has survived all that fame, money, scandal, and heartbreak could throw at her, and now she owns the right to end, continue, or reinvent the story as she chooses. As the one-year anniversary of Ozzy's passing comes and goes, Sharon is seen at public memorials, flanked by children, friends, and occasionally, old rivals now made peace with. She gives speeches that intertwine gratitude and sorrow, emphasizes the importance of charity work, and always circles back to family. Everything we built together, even the messes. Especially the messes, she laughed in one recent address, characteristically frank. In private, Sharon's real challenge has become finding peace among the echoes. The house is quieter now, but not still. Rumors suggest she has taken up writing late at night, perhaps piecing together a memoir, perhaps merely keeping ghosts at bay. Those who visit sometimes hear her playing old Sabbath records, the volume loud enough to fill the silence but quiet enough for a single voice to be heard talking back. So what, in the end, did love mean for Sharon Osbourne? It meant endurance. It meant surviving when every instinct said to flee. It meant loving fiercely, fighting harder, and standing up for family when the world applauded and when it jeered. For half a century, she carried Ozzy and their family through storms internal and external. Even after the earthquakes of betrayal, the tempests of addiction, the tremors left by death, she is unbowed. Maybe this is why fans continue to be obsessed, why her story refuses to fade into the background like so many once bright stars. Sharon Osbourne is a survivor, yes, but much more than that. She is a builder, now left to remake a future from broken parts. And as she faces whatever comes next, scandal, speculation, renewal, or simply her own reinvention, she does it as only a true Osbourne ever could, with a raised chin, an indomitable heart, and just a hint of knowing what people are about to say, but choosing to say it her own way first. In the end, Sharon's grief isn't the end of her story. It's the beginning of her next act, whatever wild, imperfect, astonishing form that takes. And the world, having watched her walk through disaster and triumph alike, will be there, waiting, still wanting to know. Is the legend of Sharon and Ozzy Osbourne over? or is the best yet to come? Because sometimes in rock and in life, survival is the wildest story of all.